Welcome to the TSG Multimedia podcast for July of 2018. We're sponsored in part by Podomatic, ExactRail, and TrainLife.com. Hi, I have a couple things to mention before we get into the review of June's activities. First, the new website I mentioned a couple months ago is going to be ready pretty soon. We're just putting some finishing touches on it, and the Patreon page that I also mentioned is going to be active soon as well. It'll have some great opportunities for everyone to get exclusive access to behind-the-scenes stuff. Pretty exciting, but it's all still under development, so just know that some cool stuff is coming. So let's get to the review of this past month. On June 3rd, I worked with Jack Burgess on June's episode of Model Railroading with Jack Burgess, right? The one that came out a couple weeks ago. We had lots of laughs, and we also reviewed some of the footage we took of the op session back in March that we're working on, and I think we all ended up hearing some really great stories on the video about research, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. On June 8th, I attended the Dcc Lunch again with Dave Adams. I learned a lot listening to these guys talk about train stuff. I was inspired to check out JMRI, partly because I'm working on a video about JMRI for Model Railroading 101 this month. I also got to meet a couple more of the regular guys at the lunch, including Rick Fortin, and his layout is one that's been suggested to me numerous times over the past couple of years for a possible layout to our program. He invited me to check out an op session later that week. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. On June 10th, the Tri-City Society of Model Engineers held their open house in Niles. Went up there with my friend John Wiley. We checked out some of the stuff going on in the depot where the N-scale layout is housed. They had some pretty cool equipment running there, and they actually have done some work on the layout, including making some progress on their upper deck. You may remember we did a layout tour of this, I think it was sometime last year. So work progresses. It's a little slow, but it does progress. We went into the HO layout, and I have to say, wow, they've made a lot of progress on the HO side of things here. They've got these photographic backdrops in now, which look really nice, and the second half of the room has been filled in quite a bit. They have downtown Niles filled in quite a bit. It's really impressive how much work goes into these things, and it's always fun to go places that I've been to before and see the amount of progress that's been made, and of course getting to see old friends too. On June 12th, I went with my top secret painting coordinator to the SBHRS, where we joined fellow members Robin and John for an entire day of volunteer work in the historic Santa Clara Depot. The kitchen had seen better days, so we spruced it up a bit. I tried to show it on the live webcast last month, but I'm not sure how clear it was going out through the little webcam on my computer. If you're local, you could just go check it out in person. On June 13th, we went to Ray Turner's Mystic Mountain Garden layout to observe and document evening and night running for a layout tour of that railroad I'm currently working on. The views from this layout were really great during the day, and the sunset and evening views are even better. The layout is lit for night operations, and the video captured this very well. I got the additional shots I need for the layout tour, which is likely to come out in September. I really enjoyed the company of the operators and host, probably as much or maybe even more than I enjoyed the railroad and the views. On June 16th, the Bay Area Prototype Modelers Meet, known as BAPM around here, was held in Richmond. I went to check out some awesome models and catch up with the goings-on with some of the manufacturers of model railroad products. The video from this event is coming out later this month as a scheduled program. More about that later. A lot of people I know, and some others I didn't know yet, came up and told me how much they enjoyed the layout tour of Jim Vale's Glenwood and Black Creek that came out on the Saturday prior to BAPM. It's flattering to be on the receiving end of compliments like that, and also flattering to know how many people enjoy the content on this channel. Thanks so much to everyone who continues to support my efforts by watching the channel regularly. Remember I was talking about DCC Lunch a few minutes ago? Well, on the way home from BAPM, we stopped by Rick Fortin's 4th District Valley Division Santa Fe layout to check out his op session. I have to say I was a little surprised to see about 20 guys operating on the layout when we got there, many of whom I already knew. And man, what a layout! I got an in-person walk-around tour from Rick, and our mutual friend Dave Adams took over when Rick had to take care of some layout owner during an op session business. This layout is proto-lanced based on the Santa Fe with some SP as well. It's rather large for a private layout with more than 600 feet of mainline track. It's a point-to-point layout built specifically for operations. Rick kindly extended an invitation to come operate on a future op session, and I'm looking forward to that a lot. On June 17th, the second ever scheduled live webcast came to the channel, once again from the Santa Clara Depot, thanks to the SBHRS and John Wiley. We talked about the best viewers on YouTube, that's you, and talked a little about some of the events we both went to so far during the month, and showed some stuff that's been getting done around the depot, like the painting. To top it all off, we ended up with an unplanned guest celebrity toward the end. I mentioned something on that webcast about running a special sale on the website to celebrate going over 19,000 subscribers, but I've decided to do it when we reach 20,000 instead and just make it a 20% off for the entire month podcast coupon. This will happen before the summer's over, so stay tuned. Better yet, if you share the channel with someone you know who might enjoy it, we'll get there sooner. On June 20th, I took the California Zephyr Train 6 from Emeryville to Salt Lake City with my friends Robin and John from the SBHRS to go to the N-Scale Enthusiast National Convention. We arrived in Salt Lake City at 4 a.m. and caught some sleep. When we woke up, we went to rent a car and then checked out the convention setup. No one was really there that day because the majority of the convention goers were on an excursion to the Heber Valley Railroad to check out the prototype operations there, so we checked out a couple of the train shops around town. On Friday, we drove down to Provo to check out the TrainLife.com brick-and-mortar shop and to see the Daneberg subdivision layout they had moved from Denmark to Utah. This layout was built by Pelle Soeborg. It was a nice time talking to Dan and Josh while we were there. After that, we drove back to the convention and spent the afternoon checking out the layouts, vendors, and model contest entries. It was very cool to see some old friends and meet some new ones as well. I even got to meet one of the viewers, Dave. It's always great to meet viewers in person. I got a message from another viewer, Josh McMurrin, who invited us to check out the Golden Spike Railroad Club layout in town. So we drove over and saw Josh run some trains along with Joel, Alvin, and Dave. And while we were there, Josh referred us to Warren Johnson's Union Pacific Bountiful division in Bountiful, which is a small town just north of Salt Lake City. So we had 2 unexpected layout tours that day. John and I flew back Saturday morning, and Robin stayed for one more day. I took quite a bit of video and photos on the trip, and I'm thinking about making a documentary of the experience for a future program on the channel. I had a great time hanging out with my buds, Robin and John, and I figure we might do another similar trip sometime in the future. Huge thanks to you guys, Robin and John, for a great trip. Thanks, fellers. I appreciated it. So, like I said, I flew back with Wiley on Saturday and touched down in San Jose around 9:30. We were picked up by my top secret cab driver, and we dropped John off at his place and then drove out to Niles Canyon to document some restoration work that's being done on the Yosemite Valley Observation Car number 330. This historic piece of equipment is owned by Wes Swift, who was on hand along with Jack Burgess, Mike Ninneman, and about a dozen more people who were all part of the YV Historical Society that Jack started decades ago. It got extremely hot that day, but the work continued until just after 4 p.m. When I say it was hot, I mean really hot, like 106 degrees or more. There was no air conditioning anywhere, but this group worked through it, and that ought to give anyone an idea of how dedicated people can be about restoration projects like this. Wes gave us a short video tour of the car for a future program before we disbanded. When the work at the Brightside Yard was over, several of the people there went to Jack's house for a barbecue. It was really great. People came from all over the world, even from as far away as Holland. I hadn't seen many of these folks at the event since last year's YV Weekend barbecue, so it was great to see them again. While we were at Jack's house, he gave an in-person tour of his YV layout to the guests, and we left around 10 p.m., and I have to say, I was beyond tired by the time we got home. I don't think I've slept that well in a long time. On June 29th, I went out with my top secret hiking partner to Uvis Canyon Park to film some video for Channel 2 content. This park might be my favorite park in the area. It has moderate trails and a lot of small waterfalls. I think we got enough video that day to not only make a day trip video, but a whole lot of nature videos as well for Channel 2. Speaking of Channel 2, the next installment of Bay Area Day Trips came out today. This one is about the Placerville and Sacramento Valley Railroad that operates out of Folsom, California, east of Sacramento. It's a good episode, and the railroad I talked about on it is also really great. Channel 2 is up to about 930 subscribers now, so that's only about 70 more to get to 1,000. You're invited to check out the Day Trips episode and see if you think it's worth subscribing to the channel. I'll still tell you when something I think you'll like comes out on that channel, but once it hits 1,000 subs, I'm not going to be asking you to subscribe there like I have been for the past 5 or 6 months. Thank you very much for helping out, though. I really do appreciate that. And finally, something happened on June 30th that I want to share with you. It's the first ever YouTube celebrity interview with Ken Patterson. Check this out. All right, so I've got Ken dialed up on Skype here. Hello, Ken. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, doing really well, John.
Well, that's great.
We've got things twisted and turned here. I'm not interviewing you, you're interviewing me.
Yeah, it's a little different, isn't it?
A little different.
Now you know what it's like to be sitting on the hot seat. So I was kind of curious, since the times I've talked to you, you kind of asked me questions, and I didn't really get to ask you questions, so I think most of my viewers probably know who you are because you've been doing what you do for a long time, and frankly, I knew who you were before I ever met you online. So I don't think there's a big mystery there, but I'm kind of curious about what made you start liking trains to begin with.
My dad had a layout when I was a kid. And then, I don't know, in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, my mom and dad split up. And I think that was my way to sort of retain, I don't know why, to be honest with you. I know my dad was involved in it, and somehow I picked it up.
So do you remember how old you were?
Oh, definitely pre-kindergarten.
Okay, so it was a very early train bug bite, huh?
Right. I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can tell just from your level of expertise that you've been doing it a long time.
Oh, since I was a kid. I mean, I couldn't wait to get out of school, high school, never mind sports. I couldn't wait to get a job. That was one thing. Working at the hardware store helped me buy supplies. But I couldn't wait to get out of school. I mean, I'd be sitting there in high school drawing trestles on a piece of paper.
Right? Isn't that funny, too? That brings me kind of to my next question, which is, I've noticed just from look behind you, there's all this stuff, besides the world's biggest hourglasses, which I'll ask you about later, because that kind of piqued my interest about the hourglasses there.
They were working a minute ago. They were working about an hour ago.
Tell me about the hourglasses before I lose that thought, because the cat's very interested in peeking out from behind them. But I'm just curious about the hourglasses. What's the story with that?
Sometimes you just get tired of watching time click by, and it's more fun to watch time go through a glass jar in sand.
So you just turned them over and watch them? Is that it?
Yeah, I mean, it's better
Help,
than two broken clocks. I mean, they're right.
helps you relax, I guess?
It's just ambiance for the studio. It's just eye candy. No matter where you point a camera in the studio, I always try to make the background look interesting. And what could be more interesting other than trains than to have a couple of nice hourglasses sitting there?
And a cat,
And Stripe, yeah, Stripe's with
right?
me all the time. She's always around. You can see her in so many videos. She's always cameo in a video because she's always around while I'm working.
Yeah. Well, cats are nice to keep you company anyway, right?
Yeah,
But
she's cool.
yeah. Speaking of the background, though, and I see this in your fascia, and I see this on your table when you're doing your "What's Neat This Week" podcast that I was a guest on, which thank you, by the way. And it occurs to me, and it has occurred to me in getting to know you, that you're really more than just a modeler. You're a real craftsman, and I mean this as a really high compliment. Did you get that also from a family member, or do you just do stuff because it has to get done, and you got good at it through practice? What's the story with the woodworking and all that stuff?
The build out on the studio, everything was designed for function. And I picked red oak stain because when I was a kid, my dad had stained a shelf red oak color. I'll never forget that stain when I was a kid. So when I started doing the inside studio here, I had a choice. I could go with black or go with some sort of stained wood. And then, these shelves down here that have got all the trains on them, those were designed to hold Hot Wheels. Because when my son was born, eBay was around that time, and next thing you know, you could buy 900 Hot Wheels for $36 on eBay, and I'm being a little bit, but the fact was we had so many cars, I had a place to display them. And when my son was very young, I took all the trains off of the lower shelves and put great big die-cast cars down there, so there was plenty of eye candy for him to touch. And then the kids, they never got to the upper shelves and touched the trains. So the shelves have worked multi-functions where, it's all about the visuals. Wherever you point a camera to make video, you want something interesting in the background in the event that the moderator's boring and your eyes start to wander around. And I think we've got that covered down here. The whole layout is staying the same color. It all matches. It's got kind of, I don't know, you go into some homes and some of these beautiful offices that these people have in these custom built homes, they're done up in gorgeous woodwork and stain. And I just think it looks nice.
And it does too. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, the "What's Neat This Week" letters you put on the desk. I look at stuff like that and I'm just like, wow, I just wouldn't have the patience to do that.
God, I remember that 30 minutes. I was supposed to be doing something else. I was under deadline for another project, and all of a sudden I started cutting these letters out. I looked at the clock and I said, it's okay if I could do it in 30 minutes.
You did those in 30 minutes?
Yeah, just whip, whip, whip. It just takes a few minutes to cut out each letter on the scroll saw. And the next thing you know, you've got them. And I had plastic templates, so I cheated for being able to get the fonts correct. I had plastic templates down here.
Okay.
So I just whipped it out. It was a last minute thing just because I think the table needed something. We built the new table, and it really works out well because it's got all the props higher up above the microphones. Because the microphones are so obtuse, they get in your way. They're almost in your way. And I really like the sound quality that we can get off of them. So it's just a matter of at some point investing in lapel microphones. It just seems like it's one thing at a time.
Yeah, and it's one thing after another too,
I mean,
right? Because once you start down that road, right?
It literally costs thousands of bucks to produce these videos. The equipment, never mind that sometimes you can edit a segment of video and it might only be 6 minutes long, but it literally just took like 10 hours or 9 hours to edit that 6 minutes. It's because, some of those how-to videos I do have got maybe 75 clips in it where I've got to read a script for each clip. So you're reviewing each clip one at a time, writing down the paragraph of information that goes with it, and then hopefully being able to read through all of it without screwing up when you do, and then you lay the video over the voiceover. And before it's over with, you got 6 minutes of entertainment where I love watching myself do a project that took 10 days in 6 minutes. I mean, it's really cool. It's neat to see it go together sometimes. Never mind who's doing the work, just the visuals. It's so much better than writing in a paper magazine. I totally understand why newspapers and papers are going broke.
I wonder about something because you just expressed some insight about production that I think a lot of people don't realize. Now we do. I remember one of the first times I talked to you, you said something about feeling my pain about the editing. And one of the things, and this is what I wanted to ask you about, because I've noticed that since I started doing production many, many years ago, that I find it very difficult to just sit and enjoy and watch something. I'm always thinking to myself, boy, what must have gone into this to bring it to the viewer,
I
Do you
can
find
relate.
yourself, do you find
Yeah.
yourself thinking about that when you're watching stuff?
July's What's Neat came out, and I misspelled my wife's name. I mean, hello. Does that not tell you that maybe I should be a little bit more thorough on my editing? Because at this point, between the podcast, the videos, I'm still supposed to get a bunch of videos done for Caboose. And never mind the fact that I haven't loaded a new video on my website in 3 years, kenpatterson.com. There's still a lot of great videos there, but there's nothing in the last 3 years that I've had time to put together and produce. I am maxed out for time. Right now, between the accounts, which I love my accounts, my photography accounts, and the podcasts, and doing the What's Neat show, and doing the segments for What's Neat, I don't think it's physically possible for me to do any more right now. I'm working 7 days a week, I sleep 8, and I get work done the rest of the time. And it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what you get done when you're awake. It doesn't matter if it's nighttime or daytime or what time I sleep. If I do a 22-hour day, it don't matter what day of the week it is, as long as I get trash day right, because I got to take the trash down on a certain day, right? But the rest of the week, it's a blur of time. It doesn't matter what time it is. It only matters what you get done when you're awake. And as long as I can keep up this without getting burned out, and so far so good, because the reason I don't get burned out is just what you talked about, John. When you sit back and you look at that video that you just spent all that time editing, that is one. I mean, it's look, don't smoke cigarettes. I started smoking cigarettes doing this video stuff. Not that it made me crazy, but there's nothing better than watching a 6-minute clip. And there's no clip on video that'll last longer than a cigarette. So if you look at my segments, none of them last longer than a cigarette because I want to sit back and smoke one, watch the finished product, and somehow it's therapeutic. It's probably that damn nicotine. I got to quit these things. I'm working on that. I'm working on that.
I have an idea for that, Ken, that might help. Take one of those hourglasses, and instead of the cigarette, just turn the hourglass over. And if the segment lasts longer than 2 of those hourglasses, then you know it's too long. How about that for
there you go. Now, with that prototype modelers meet coming up here in a couple more weeks and the NMRA show coming up in a few more weeks, I thought maybe we'd take this whole setup to a show. But there's no time to build the set to take it to a show. I think we're going to be walking around with cameras and a microphone doing interviews.
Speaking of that, I know that you have those 2 shows, and those are big deals. Do you have anything else coming up on either the What's Neat on Trainmasters TV or What's Neat this week that's going to be something that maybe the viewers of my channel might want to check out? Anything you can think of coming up?
I'm working on August. I've got 5 days to get it done. I've got 13 minutes done so far. Tonight we're going to film a few segments, one with Michael Buddy. He's coming over because it's Saturday night that we're recording this right now.
Oh, cool.
So Mike's coming over tonight. I might get a segment from him. I just filmed a segment over there with Dirk on how to build a sled for your table saw for precision cutting of building walls and cutting piers and trusses and things like that. So even tonight I'm filming segments for the video that's due in 5 days. So it's literally, well, I think what it is I can push it to the very last minute because I've got the process down now where I can do that. Like when I do the podcast, I have that out in 12 hours. Usually it takes between 9 and 12 hours to edit the podcast. It depends on how many sprinkles I have to put in. So when I'm talking, you can bet that you're getting a lot of visuals because I see them in my head as I'm talking about them, and then that's what you see on video. And all of that material takes a great amount of time, and the podcast is time sensitive. Not that What's Neat isn't. I've got a deadline of the 5th every month to have the show done a month before. But the podcast is so time sensitive with the sponsors, you've got to have it out at least by Monday morning. And then the first 24 hours, I think we get like 3,700 hits, thereabouts. So it's almost like people almost expect it to be out by Monday. So that's what I strive for. I'll work all night on Sunday, work all day Sunday, put it together.
Yeah, you do a really good job pumping those things out because I watch what you put into them and think, wow, he did that in 2 days. That's pretty darn good. So,
and I still manage to get the. And again, it's the efficiency of the studio. I mean, it's a lot of work, but no, it isn't when everything's laid out right where you want it. When you've got 3 or 4 different projects on top of tables where you can work on each one and go to each one back and forth, you don't get bored because you're doing 5 different projects and they're all getting done at the same time and getting videotaped. And so in 4 or 5 or 6 days, you can create enough material to do a show.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've probably taken up enough of your time, but I enjoyed this, so I'd like to maybe have you on some other time and pick your brain and see what kind of stuff you have coming up on your show, because I told you this in person, or, well, when we were talking on your show, and I'm going to tell you again, I really like what you do. Everything is so positive and so energetic, and I think that's sort of, I don't know, I want to say a breath of fresh air, but it's not that things are stale. It's just nice to see, I guess, is what I'm trying to say to you. So
my ship could be sinking over here, but you won't know it on video, because on video it's got to be happy, positive, and professional. I say that to the guys right before the countdown on the podcast. Happy. Don't bring any of your home personal stuff with you, because the model railroaders, the viewers, they don't want that. They want to see happiness. They've already got their life is just like mine. It's chaos, it's confusion, the kids, the sports, the this, the that. There's so many other things going on behind the scenes that you don't see. That's still pretty neat during the week.
yeah.
But the viewer wants happiness. While they're sitting there driving to work, they're thinking about what they got to do. They don't want to hear anything negative. They don't want to hear a negative product review. They don't want to hear any negative anything. It's got to be all happy. And I think if we keep doing it, it's there's a little bit of an act to it. But if you do it right and you keep it professional, you'll sustain an audience, and who knows what's coming up in the future. I don't know, but I know it's going to be good.
Yeah, and one thing you said that touches on, you're talking about how people have their own drama going on at home and all that, and you touch on that. I think it's a key thing, which is people come to watch our shows to get away from all that stuff. So why introduce more of your own, right?
Absolutely right.
Yeah, so I hadn't really thought of it that way, but you make a good point there. So anyway, cool. Thanks again for hanging with us for a few minutes. I enjoyed talking to you. We have great conversations when we're not on camera. Can't share everything, though.
No, I love you on camera because you're easy to talk to. When the cameras are on, you and I just dance. You're very, very good on camera, so you make a good interview, and it makes my job easier. When you've got a good interview on the other end, it's an easy edit.
Well, you made it easy for me, too, just now. So, and, it's fun, too, because there are a lot of people you talk to, and they can't talk very well. We don't seem to have that problem, do we? We just kind of ramble.
No, I used to be in sales. At the hardware store, we would sell 8 lawnmowers a year, and one year there was one that I liked, and we sold 150. The newspaper guy that did our newspaper ads walked up to me. He's like, "Hey, Patterson, I hear you got a pretty good spiel. I want to hear it, but I don't want to buy a lawnmower, but I want to hear it."
Did he buy it?
And I gave it. He walked out of there with a $600 Toro. He sure did. So there's a little bit of it's fun to just be able to. I don't want to use the word manipulate because it sounds condescending, but it's really fun to get a reaction out of other people and close a deal just by using a few words, a smile, and a lot of good positive information. It's the same. It's how sales work.
Yeah, I've been.
So I enjoy that. If I sold cars, I bet I'd have a good time. But I'm not selling cars.
I've been in sales myself, and one of the things that I always focused on was actually helping the people that were in front of you. Because a lot of people sell to sell. It's like, well, I figured you might as well help people because they'll buy something if you show them the solution to what they really need, right? So
Absolutely.
Anyway, all right, hey everybody, and one of these days I just want to get this in there. I'm gonna get out there. It's gonna happen. It's just a matter of when, right? So
this is good, man, and I think I've got you set up here. I'm recording audio. I'm recording video. And I don't know which camera to look at.
That's okay.
I hope this comes out good.
That's
for
okay.
You.
You'll get to watch it next week. This is being recorded a week ago today, by the way, because this is for my podcast that's coming out on Saturday next week. So
awesome. I actually look forward to that because that's a show I don't have to edit, but I still get to enjoy. So believe me, John, I love watching your stuff.
Well, I'm glad you do, and I'm glad you took the time to talk to me here today, everybody. Ken Patterson, they're applauding right now. Thanks, Ken. We'll talk to you later.
All right, brother. Take care.
Let's look at the viewer poll results from last month. The question was, is this channel headed in the right direction? Yes got 95%, no got 3%, and other got 1%. Now, I purposely asked for feedback from anyone who checked off no or other, hoping to find ways that I can improve things. But no one who checked off these options made any comments, so I guess we don't have to worry about that. In any case, you can always send an email if you get a great idea. I read all of them, and hey, thanks for the feedback. The email, if you want to send it, is podcast@tsgmultimedia.com. I mentioned last month about an ongoing exhibit called Shake, Rattle, and Roll being held at the San Diego Model Railroad Museum. It's about modern-day graffiti being put on scale models, and it features models from artists all across North America. This exhibit will continue to run through November 16th. There was a big announcement from the Pacific Locomotive Association about their 150th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad coming up next year. Unlike other celebrations, this one goes on for several months, and it has events scheduled every weekend of those months, including at least one major event in each month. I've known about this for a while, but I was sworn to secrecy. Well, now they announced it, so I can tell you. All I can say about that is you will not be disappointed by what they're referring to as the big events in each month. If you've ever wanted an excuse to come to the Bay Area, this would be a great one. Stay tuned to the Pacific Locomotive Association's website at ncry.org to find out what they are doing and when. Nothing else is on my radar at the moment, but you can always check your local preservation groups, museums, and heritage railways for events near you. Chances are they're doing some neat things, and I'd sure hate for you to miss out. I have another product spotlight for you this month, so let's head over to my workbench and take a look. Alright, so I'm over at the workbench now, and this product spotlight features ExactRail's Pullman Standard 7315 cubic inch waffle boxcar. These models are part of ExactRail's Platinum series, so they come with cut levers and air hoses installed. And like all of ExactRail's models, they were designed and engineered and tooled right here in the US. They have an amazing number of really great separately applied details, which I'll show you in a second. You know, wire grab irons, fine stirrups, and so forth. I had to take them off the tracks. I had them set up on the tracks, but they kept rolling off because they are so free rolling. So let's take a look at some of these details. So here's what I'm talking about. We have these wire grabs on the side. You can tell looking at this one how clean the paint is too, which I'll talk about in a second, but you can see that they have separately applied door tracks. That's a really neat looking feature there. And you're getting a little preview of the brake detail. I'll talk about that in a minute. So as you can see, it comes with a body-mounted Caty knuckle coupler. Very nice. If you look carefully, you can see the separately applied, very fine cut lever. Ladders are separately applied tack board. This handle, this grab that goes all the way across, also is separately applied. The crossover platform looks like a photo-etched piece. Can't tell if it's a photo-etched metal piece or a plastic piece, but it is very finely rendered. And then you can see it also has the air hose installed. It came straight out of the box like this. Take a look at this brake detail. This is all separately applied, and a lot of this can be seen when the car is rolling down the track, so this is really nice detail to have on this. These are 100-ton ride control trucks with insulated 36-inch machined metal wheel sets. And like I said before, they're very, very free rolling. I had to take all of these off the track so they wouldn't roll away. Taking a look at the paint on this model, you can see that there's no voids in the printing, and it has prototype specific stuff like this ACI label. Some of the other road names don't have that. They're offered in 8 paint schemes with varying road numbers, all of which come assembled, but there's also an undecorated kit you can build and decorate in your own paint scheme if you want something truly custom. You can get these models between $30 to about $50, depending which one you choose, and they all look this good. If this model seems like something you're interested in, head over to ExactRail or TrainLife.com using the links in the podcast description so that they know you saw it here. And ExactRail and TrainLife, thank you very much for sponsoring the podcast. It's greatly appreciated. And now for some of the things I have going on in July. The Fern Creek and Western Garden Railroad in Santa Cruz is having an open house today. I'll probably run some trains and do some filming. At least that's what usually happens. I'm also pretty sure Trevor has some new locations on the layout that he wants to share with us on next month's podcast. I'll be filming with Jack tomorrow for the August episode of Model Railroading with Jack Burgess. I'll have more information about that on next month's podcast. I'm going to film the daytime portion of Ray Turner's Mystic Mountain on July 23rd. Then finally, I'll be taking some time off, for real, between July 24th and July 31st, as I have some family visiting from out of town. I'm sure I'll end up editing some stuff and doing the normal planning and behind-the-scenes stuff that makes the channel go, but I'm not going to do a lot of train stuff that week. Finally. Here are some upcoming programs for July. Next Saturday, July 14th, this month's layout tour, the Alameda County Central Railroad Society's O-Scale Layout Tour. You may have seen this layout in person if you went to the Alameda County Fair. In this video, you get to hear about the organization's history as well. On July 21st at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, a video about the Bay Area Prototype Modelers Meet that I talked about earlier will be out. We got quite a few photos of the models on display, and I also went around the room to interview most of the vendors there before running out of time. On the Sunday of that same weekend, so July 22nd, I'll be doing another live webcast. It seems that for the past 2 months, a live webcast has come out on the third Sunday, so I figure I'll do it again. It seems like a regular thing now, so please join me for an impromptu discussion about stuff that's going on and live interaction, the kind that you can only get from talking real time to someone. As long as these webcasts continue to be popular, I'll continue to do them. So do your best to show up at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, Sunday, July 22nd. On July 28th, the next episode of Model Railroading 101 comes out. This month, I'm going to present an introduction to Java Model Railroad Interface, also known as JMRI. This episode will be similar to the NCE versus Digitrax episode in that I'm going to include other people who are more knowledgeable than I am on the subject matter. I'm still in the process of developing that program, so I don't have any more details about it for you right now. This month's poll is related to an announcement I made last month about developing a presence on Patreon. In case you don't know what Patreon is, it's a special site where you can become what they call a patron. In exchange for your support, you can get exclusive rewards. I have some ideas already about what to offer, but I want to know what you think. So what kind of rewards would you like most for supporting TSG on Patreon? The answers are merchandise like t-shirts, hats, mugs, that kind of thing. How about exclusive content? This might include behind-the-scenes stuff, train show coverage, or maybe even custom content that'll be created based on your feedback. Or how about a chance to be a special guest on a TSG program, like to go chasing trains or be a guest on the podcast? Another possible reward could be discounts on TSG Multimedia DVDs. And finally, other. I'll ask again for specifics in this category. If you check off other, please describe what you're thinking about in the comments below. Okay, so in addition to the monthly poll today, I want to ask you who else you think would be a good interview, like the one that you saw with Ken Patterson earlier. I have plans for next month, but if everyone likes these interview segments, I'm going to try to do more of them. So that about covers everything I wanted to talk about this month. I hope you're having an excellent summer. Please share this channel with your friends, and thanks so much for your continued support. I'll see you next time.
Hi, my name is Ron Perry, or just another scale modeler on YouTube. John asked me to do a little bit of an introduction to his friends. I've been building kits for about 10 years now. I wouldn't really call myself a model railroader per se, more of a structure modeler. I've built more wood kits than I have of plastic kits, so that has put me into the niche of wood modeling kits. So that's who I am, John's friends. We'll talk more about this next month.